If ever there was a person who ought to be impeached, it's Donald John Trump. This president is a reckless, ruthless, lawless person who doesn't deserve the title of President of the United States.
Well, the House Democrats shut down a fellow member's latest attempt to impeach President Trump. 23 of those Democrats joined Republicans in voting down Texas Congressman Al Green articles accusing Trump of abuse of power. Here's Al Green yesterday.
Hey guys, Adam here. All right, buckle up. We need to talk about what's unfolding right now in Washington, a political earthquake that's been rumbling beneath the surface and is now cracking the foundation of the White House. Donald Trump is back for a second term, but less than a year in, his presidency is facing a dual-pronged constitutional crisis so severe it has him pleading behind closed doors, while the Senate, for the first time, is seriously counting votes for his potential removal.
As we come on the air tonight, the House of Representatives is moving toward impeaching a president for only the third time in U.S. history. It has been a day of passionate debate in the Judiciary Committee, and Democrats have beaten back repeated Republican attempts to throw out those articles of impeachment. They have been at it for hours, and it has been a battle every inch of the way.
This isn't speculation. This isn't a rumor mill churning on social media. This is documented reality. Impeachment resolutions filed, the 25th Amendment invoked in public discourse by sitting U.S. senators, and a president who is, by all accounts, in a state of full-blown panic. The title says it all. Trump is begging because the Senate is moving. Let's break down how we got here.
In Washington, House Democrats are in the final stages of preparing articles of impeachment. President Trump once again dismissed the inquiry today on his way to Florida, where he'll speak at an event tonight. Natalie Brand is at the White House.
The impeachment thing is a total hoax. The numbers have totally swung our way. They don't want to see impeachment, especially in the swing states.
As House Democrats move forward with drafting articles of impeachment as soon as next week, the president continues to defend the July phone call with Ukraine's leader that triggered the impeachment inquiry.
We had a perfect conversation. It was only a conversation.
Imagine this. The political landscape is already a pressure cooker. And into this environment, not one, not two, but 3 separate articles of impeachment have been formally filed against the 47th President of the United States. These aren't mere press releases. They are H.Res. 353 from April, H.Res. 537 from June, and the most recent, a blistering document labeled H.Res. 939, introduced just this past December by Congressman Al Green.
President Trump is accused of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. He calls it impeachment light.
The president is wrong.
But, Madam Speaker, you yourself accused him of bribery. Why did you decide not to make bribery one of the articles of impeachment?
The language within them isn't the typical political posturing, it's the language of last resorts. They allege abuse of power, usurpation of Congress's war powers, violation of the First Amendment. One resolution uses a word that echoes through history: tyranny. They point to specific acts, unilateral military strikes, threats against political opponents, a pattern of conduct described as an existential threat to the republic itself. Normally, you'd dismiss this. Impeachment resolutions get filed and fade into obscurity. But the context has shifted. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening alongside something even more extraordinary: open, serious discussion about the 25th Amendment. Senator Ed Markey didn't whisper it in a hallway. He posted it publicly, calling for the amendment's invocation after a series of bewildering presidential statements about acquiring Greenland and linking global peace to personal accolades. Representative Yasmin Ansari didn't mince words, stating the president is mentally ill and demanding immediate 25th Amendment action. We are now in a realm where the highest levels of government are publicly debating not just if the president has committed crimes, but if he is mentally capable of serving. This changes everything. Here's the crucial mechanics that make this moment so perilous for Trump. The impeachment process and the 25th Amendment process, while starting differently, converge on the same brutal arithmetic: the United States Senate. Let's follow the impeachment track first. Should the House of Representatives, currently under Republican control but potentially flipping in the 2026 midterms, vote to impeach, the charges move to the Senate for a trial. To convict and remove the president, the Constitution demands a two-thirds supermajority. That's 67 votes out of 100. Now, the 25th Amendment track. This is the constitutional provision for when a president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. It's often thought of for medical incapacitation, but it encompasses any inability, including mental or psychological. The process can be triggered by the vice president and a majority of the cabinet. They submit a declaration to Congress, and poof, the vice president immediately becomes acting president. The president can fight back, submitting his own counter-declaration saying he's fit. But then, Congress must vote. They have 21 days. And to keep the president out of power, they need a two-thirds vote in both chambers. Again, 67 senators. See the fatal funnel? Whether it's impeachment for high crimes or removal for inability, the final judgment rests with 100 men and women in the Senate chamber, and the magic number is always 67. This number is now the sole focus of every political operative, every worried senator, and a terrified president. So, what is Donald Trump doing while this machinery grinds into motion? He isn't just sitting in the Oval Office fuming. He is engaged in a desperate, frantic campaign of preservation. His entire strategy hinges on one thing: absolute Republican loyalty in the Senate. Sources indicate a storm of activity, calls placed late into the night to key senators, a mix of lavish promises and barely veiled threats. The message is clear: stay with me. The base is mine. Cross me, and I will end your career. On his platform, Truth Social, the public sees the rage, the cries of witch hunt, hoax, deep state coup. But those close to him report a different energy, a palpable fear. The tone has shifted from confident bluster to something verging on desperation. He knows the numbers. He understands that his firewall is not made of concrete, but of fragile human ambition and fear. He's right to be afraid. The Republican Senate majority is slim. The 2026 midterms loom like a storm cloud. Current polling suggests a wave that could hand the House back to Democrats and chip away at the Senate GOP edge. Trump himself has warned that impeachment is certain if Congress flips, but the danger is more immediate than that. It's about the cracks in his own wall. Remember the second impeachment trial? 7 Republican senators voted to convict Donald Trump. That was before this second term, before the escalation of rhetoric, before the unilateral actions that prompted impeachment resolutions, before senators felt the heat of publicly calling him unfit. Now, figures like Senator Markey are putting the 25th Amendment into the mainstream conversation. This is critical. It provides political cover. It makes the unthinkable become discussable. When a respected senator says, "We need to invoke the 25th," other lawmakers, including Republicans who are privately exhausted by the chaos, start to allow themselves to consider it. The Overton window shifts. The question in the marble halls of the Senate transforms from, "Is this treasonous?" to a colder, more calculating one, "Is he survivable?" For many GOP senators, Trump is a means to an end: judicial appointments, tax policy, regulatory rollbacks. But he is also a constant source of volatility. Volatility is the enemy of re-election. When the president muses about buying Greenland or ties global stability to his ego, it doesn't play well in suburban precincts. When formal accusations of tyranny are on the official record, it becomes a stain on every member of his party. The calculation begins to shift from "how do I please the base" to "how do I save my own skin?" This is where the cold math becomes terrifying for Team Trump. Let's game it out. Current Senate, 53 Republicans, 47 Democrats. To remove Trump needs 67 votes. That requires all 47 Dems plus 20 Republicans. A steep hill. But after November 2026, assume Democrats have a good night. They already hold the White House, so historical trends for midterms are scrambled, but anti-Trump energy is high. Let's say they net +3 Senate seats. New math, 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, VP breaks tie for Democrats. Now to remove, you need 67 votes. That's all 50 Dems plus 17 Republicans. Net plus 4 seats, 51 Dems, 49 GOP. Need 67 votes for all 51 Dems plus 16 Republicans. Net plus 5 seats, 52 Dems, 48 GOP. Need 67 votes for all 52 Dems plus 15 Republicans. Every seat Democrats gain reduces the number of Republicans needed to cross the Rubicon. The pressure on those remaining Republicans becomes immense. They are no longer just breaking with the party. They might be voting with the majority to stabilize the country. The narrative flips. This is the scenario that haunts Trump's political dreams. He isn't just fighting the Democrats. He's fighting a calendar and a demographic trend that threatens to isolate his loyalists and make them vulnerable. So, here is the stark reality as it stands. Track 1. The legal assault. 3 impeachment resolutions sit like loaded weapons, their charges specific and severe. They may be dormant in a Republican House, but they are a ready-made blueprint for a Democratic House post-2026. The case is already written: abuse, tyranny, threat to the Republic. Track 2. The fitness question. The 25th Amendment discourse has been unleashed from the shadows into the daylight. It is no longer a medical hypothetical. It is a political tool being openly advocated by members of Congress. This changes the temperature of the entire building. It makes the president's every slip, every rant, every odd digression potential evidence in a competency hearing. The convergence. Both tracks lead to the Senate, where the 2/3 rule reigns supreme. Trump's entire effort is a desperate attempt to keep that 67-vote threshold out of reach by maintaining monolithic GOP support. But that monolith is showing stress fractures. The 7 convictors from the past are a precedent. The looming midterms are a threat multiplier. And the public, normalized to crisis, is now being normalized to the language of removal. The title of this moment is not hyperbole. Trump begs as Senate moves toward removal is a literal description. The begging is in the frantic phone calls, the transactional promises, the social media eruptions designed to rally the faithful and intimidate the wavering. The movement is in the quiet conversations in Senate cloakrooms, the polling analyses, the grim-faced discussions about what happens if, or when, the vote actually comes to the floor. We are not at the end of this story, but we have passed a point of no return. The mechanisms for removing a president, impeachment for malevolence, the 25th Amendment for incapacity, are now both active and simultaneously in play. The pressure is building in a way it never has before. The Senate is doing the math. And Donald Trump, for all his bluster, can see the numbers too. He's fighting for his political life, and for the first time, the weapons being wielded against him aren't from the outside. They are from within the very institutions he commands, and their aim is lethally precise. The begging has begun because the movement is real. And in Washington, movement, once it starts, is almost impossible to stop.